Botswana, a southern African country where the affluent Okavango River flows right into the vast Kalahari sands. Water is scarce here, and so is food, and the heat often soars to 50 degrees centigrade. The Bushmen are the only people who can endure a climate like this. For over 70,000 years, they have lived in the heart of nowhere.
Несмотря на все страдания, мучения,
in spite of all the hardships and ordeals, the Bushmen have survived. Many of them certainly integrated into other tribes, others moved to cities. Yet a tiny group of the Bushmen have been able to preserve a world of their own, adjusting it to the severe climate of the desert. And it is this unique world that we would like to tell you about, with no bias or prejudice. In a way, the Bushmen are true ancestors of humanity. Contemporary research shows that markers in their genes are the most ancient ones of all existing human groups. Bushmen, as the name suggests itself, means children of the savannah. They got it from Dutch settlers back in the 17th century. The Europeans were bewildered by the bizarre tribes who knew neither agriculture, nor crafts, nor traditional cattle breeding. However, they boast a profound bush law. When the Bushmen go looking for food, they spot what our eye would seldom see. They know where the rain clouds go and follow them. The Bushman's ability to find water in the desert is one of the essential keys to their survival. This amazing skill most vividly manifests the sixth sense of the desert peoples. They have eagerly told us how they collect rainwater. They drill a hole in an empty ostrich egg. Next, they insert a bundle of soft grass in the shell. When it rains, water flows down into the egg. In the Kalahari, there is often no rainfall for months. And it is only from January to March that the rainy season comes, rousing the desert from its lethargy. This is when the time is right for the Bushmen to conserve water. As for the leftovers, they bury them in the ground. And when the drought comes back, the Bushmen will find their caches by signs they alone can understand. After the odd rainstorms, water is accumulated in abundance in hollow tree trunks. To extract it, they suck the drops out through a simple reed. In the past, during drought periods, the weak and sick would of their own accord stay at the encampment, to die of thirst rather than be a burden to the band. For thousands and thousands of years, such behavior has been a hard and fast rule of survival for the Bushmen. Bush law is a bit like the Lord's Prayer, learnt by heart from the cradle. By the age of 10, a baby bushman can differentiate between more than 70 plants. And, like a good doctor, knows pretty well which ones can be used as medicine or simply as food for the band. Faint tracks in the sand or dry feces will tell the bushman hunters, just like CSI experts, what kind of antelope has been there and when, as well as its sex and age. They read the savannah and its wildlife like an open book.
Я думаю, что можно сказать, что в отношениях
Arguably, the bushman and nature share a unique creative harmony. In a way, these two complement each other.
Как сказал наш переводчик Эрик, можно
Our interpreter, Eric, hit the nail on the head, saying, "You can take the bushmen out of the bush, but you cannot take the bush out of the bushman." The bushmen have no idea of private property, except all the tools, weapons, and other individual possessions, that is, everything made by a bushman himself. These are put into the grave with him, remaining his personal belongings after his death. Even a man cannot use his wife's possessions without her permission.
в жизни бушмена входит
Generally speaking, a bushman only needs a few things to survive.
все имущество бушмена.
In essence, all he has, all the most valuable and important things, are all in this bag. So now I would like to share with you the experience of examining a bushman's must-have hunting kit.
Пакетик, в котором
Here is a package storing the precious tobacco,
еще один предмет.
and these are the tobacco leaves. The bushmen have enjoyed smoking since time immemorial. A favorite smoking mixture is called macaranga. To make it, the sheep-lick plant and wild bees' honey are dried in the sun. Sheep-lick is nicotine-free. Lately, a few sly tobacco companies have been selling this plant under the name of Bushman tobacco as an alleged way to get rid of nicotine addiction.
Но, видимо, тут главное открытие еще.
However, my greatest discoveries seem yet to be made.
Панцирь черепахи.
Look, this is a tortoise shell, an interesting item.
Поскольку Грешин сам
As a hunter, I confess I would have never generated such a bright idea. In fact, this is a container for herbs that produce a certain fragrance, chasing away the hunter's smell, so as to prevent animals from sniffing him as he comes. Deliciously smelling herbs are stuffed in here, which gives the hunter a better chance to ambush the game. But as our friend told us, this little shell is multifunctional. You can, for example, insert a special plant, an aphrodisiac, which is equivalent to bushman perfume. Then the women will cluster to the holder of the container, much like butterflies to a flame.
И, наконец, еще одна сумочка, самая интересная, наверное.
Here's yet another small bag, probably the bushman's most remarkable possession. This is no kid's bow. This is a bushman hunter's bow with an exceptionally strong string, made of the oryx antelope sinew. And it is with such bows and arrows that the bushmen hunt large antelope. He's just taken the arrow out of my hands because it has a poisoned tip. By the way, the bushmen use insect larvae to get poison in the bush. Finally, let's have a look at these absolutely priceless fire sticks. This is the so-called mother stick, with a small hole, And it only takes 4 or 6 skillful bushmen hands and a little friction to quickly make fire in the savannah.
Когда я первый раз услышал о том, что бушмены могут охотиться на лошадях, я не поверил.
The stereotype of the bushman's unwillingness to keep livestock of any kind is so strong that I could hardly believe my ears when I first heard that the bushmen could hunt on horseback. I discovered, however, that they ride extremely well and are very in tune both with horses and with dogs, which also help the bushmen to hunt large and small game. But to see the bushmen hunt on horseback these days, one has to be very lucky. There are only very few bushmen who lead their lives roaming through the wilderness. In addition, they simply cannot afford the luxury of hunting antelope. By law in Botswana, you have to buy a license to hunt any game. And so I bought 3 licenses to hunt the oryx and invited the bushmen to join me. They gladly accepted the invitation. The bushmen actually prefer to track the animal on foot and shoot it with an arrow afterwards. And it's hard to say who taught the bushmen to use horses for hunting. It was only in the 20th century that horseback hunting became a well-established practice. The bushmen hired the horses from their Bantu neighbors and gave them meat as rent. The hunting team consists of about 6 or 7 men. As soon as the bushmen spot fresh antelope footprints, they send the dogs to trace the antelope and follow them until they approach the animal. Then they start the chase. Excitement grows. Together with the camera crew and the elders, we set off hunting. The bushmen look so placid, but once they spot the game, they will turn into impetuous horsemen. Finally, an antelope appears in the bush. And this launches the race for survival. The kudu, oryx and eland are not as sturdy as horses. Once the animal grows tired, it will be speared. Bushmen hunters teach their young apprentices by telling them this story. Every morning, an antelope wakes up in the savannah. She knows that she must run faster than the fastest bushman, otherwise she will be slaughtered by his spear. Every morning, a bushman wakes up in the savannah. He knows that he must run faster than the fastest antelope, otherwise his family will die of starvation. No matter who you are, bushman or antelope, each time the sun rises in the savannah, you'd better start running. The distance between the hunters and their prey has diminished. Still, it is too early for the persecutors to throw their spears. Experienced hunters, they are patiently chasing the oryx instead of taking the risk of attacking straight away. They drain the animal of all its strength by time-tested maneuvers. Thorny bush, warthog burrows, there's danger everywhere. And if a hunter falls, he knows better than to expect help from the others. Here, it's every man for himself. If they don't catch the antelope, they will starve. Now, the oryx is running at a much slower pace. She is clearly doomed. Hardly moving, she runs into the bush and almost falls down dead. And here comes the first strike. Other hunters dismount and strike too. Even now, the antelope is extremely dangerous, and the men keep away from her. But the animal finally falls down. It won't take long now. This is the end of one of the most exciting hunts I've ever been to. I've been a hunter for some 11 years, but never have I seen such an adrenaline-filled hunt as today. It took 4 spear strikes to stop the almighty oryx, perhaps one of the most beautiful animals in Africa. The Bushmen are great horsemen. To be frank, I didn't believe it at first. But today, I have seen with my own eyes how bravely they rush through the savannah, in spite of bush thorns and warthog burrows and holes that the horses fall into, breaking their legs. That is why the harvest is so impressive. And this is the man of the hour. It was him who was honored to deliver the first strike, and he did it skillfully. That is why he deserves the trophy. But hunting rules are no commandments to the Bushmen. Everything belongs to the band. The meat is shared among all. They aren't simply dressing the meat, but also cutting it into thin slices to later dry it in the sun. The Bushmen are preparing an African speciality, jerked and dried meat, called biltong. There's no salt in the savannah, and flies take advantage of this. So every sunset, the Bushmen get rid of the larvae left by the insects. Biltong can be stored for about 6 months. Besides, it weighs so little that they can take it with them on their treks. This dish is particularly prepared for the puberty rite of the young man who was honored to make the first strike. We wondered why the Bushmen were hesitant to attack the antelope and strike it with the spear. Later, we understood they were waiting for this boy to get close enough to make the first strike. The Bushmen believe the antelope will give this boy her divine powers, so that he will become a good hunter. And now, one of the elders cuts off the antelope's ear. The idea being that the wild animals will not be able to hear the youngster approaching on future hunts. This rite is very important for the Bushmen. Not only does it mark the birth of a new hunter, but it also endows him with hunting skills. The initiation ceremony itself consists of several stages. First, the novice gets a special tattoo. He then takes part in rituals that they believe will give him strength, bravery, and dexterity. After the ceremony, the newly initiated hunter invites the others to share the meat soup. The women are not allowed to eat with the men, but they do take part in the final part of the ceremony. The Bushmen are performing a special dance that symbolizes their gratitude to their ancestors. They would never have been able to shoot the antelope without their help. This is how the Bushmen have lived for over 70,000 years, relying only on their own resources and on their ancestors, who have taught them to survive in the desert, in an environment where, to outsiders, survival would be impossible.